Why are Australian officials hinting at war with China? CNN, for a country with a much smaller military and no nuclear weapons, Australia is certainly hinting an awful lot about a war with China. On April 25, the symbolic date of Anzac Day, when Australia honors its war dead, newly appointed Defense Minister Peter Dutton said a conflict with China over Taiwan shouldn't be discounted, adding that Australians needed to be realistic about tensions around the region. In another Anzac Day message, the top official at Australia's powerful Home Affairs Department, Mike Pezzullo, told his staff free nations were hearing the drums of war beating again. A few days later, Prime Minister Scott Morrison announced the $580 million in military upgrades. On 1 week on, several newspapers published a confidential briefing by Australia's Major Jan Adam Findlay to Special Forces soldiers, in which he said the conflict with China was a high likelihood. The idea of Australia fighting a war against China on its own is ridiculous. Last year, Australia's military spending was about $27 billion, according to a Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. China's was estimated to be 10 times higher for the same period, at about $252 billion, the second highest in the world. Plus, China is nuclear power. Australia is not. The China-Australia relationship is in the doldrums. Relations between Canberra and Beijing have been a deep freeze for almost a year, since Morrison and his government infuriated their Chinese counterparts by publicly calling for an investigation into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. Since then, Australia's exports to China, including corn, wheat, and wine, have faced crippling obstacles. The Australian government has moved to conflict Beijing about allegations of human rights abuses in Xinjiang and Hong Kong, and Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijiang has joined the chorus of state-run media highlighting Australia's poor human rights record on refugees and indigenous Australians. But much of warlike rhetoric from Australia is actually driven by domestic politics, said Yun Jiang, managing editor at the Australian National University's Centre on China in the World. The Morrison government is under pressure of allegations it has mishandled its COVID-19 vaccine rollout and could be looking to shift the focus. Focusing on the external enemy has usually been quite effective in uniting public sentiment and rallying around the government, she said. I think it's irresponsible for the government to talk it up like that. War is very serious business. The Australian government words, however, may reflect real concerns about the possibility of the Chinese invasion of Taiwan, a conflict that could ultimately involve the entire Asian region and even the US. But that terrifying prospect, said Yun, is likely why other US allies in closer proximity to Beijing's sphere of influence, such as South Korea and Japan, aren't echoing Canberra's aggressive language. China can't stop talking about the Bill and Melinda Gates divorce. Bill and Melinda Gates divorce won and their foundation partnership. The divorce of Bill and Melinda Gates has sent shockwaves through China, where the Microsoft co-founder has achieved a level of fame unlike almost any other Western entrepreneur. The Bill Gates divorce hashtag has generated more than 810 million views and 65,000 discussion posts on China's Twitter-like platform Weibo by Wednesday, far surpassing the 91 million views accumulated when Amazon founder Jeff Bezos divorced Mackenzie Scott in 2019. Chinese Weibo users flattered about everything from how the couple would divide their massive fortune to whether the divorce would affect Microsoft or their foundation. Through their philanthropic organization, the pair have spent $53.8 billion on global health, poverty alleviation, and other initiatives. Bill Gates is worth about $146 billion according to a Bloomberg Billionaires Index, and the couple has pledged to give the vast majority of their worth away to charity. Even prominent tech figures in China joined the conversation. Kai-Fu Lee, the former head of Google China, who helped establish Microsoft Research Lab Asia, a hugely influential network in China, said it was hard for him to believe the news. Bill and Melinda are the most affectionate couple I haven't seen, along celebrity entrepreneurs, he said in the Weibo post. Interest may, in part, be an unintentional result of Microsoft China strategy. While Bill Gates no longer runs Microsoft, the company has spent decades building goodwill with Beijing. Its products have a considerable presence in China, even as other Western tech companies have been locked out, and that's likely contributed to Bill Gates' personal draw. He now has more than 4.1 million followers on Weibo, outnumbering Tesla CEO Elon Musk 1.7 million and Apple chief Tim Cook's 1.4 million. By Laura He. Around Asia. An Indian court confirmed the death of a COVID-19 patient due to oxygen shortage to genocide. The Pentagon is tracking a Chinese rocket set to re-enter Earth's atmosphere this weekend. Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte reportedly told his cabinet that only he can swear in public after a minister told China to get the fuck out of Philippines waters. New Zealand lawmakers will debate human rights abuses in Xinjiang Wednesday, but must avoid the word genocide at the ruling Labour Party's insistence, says the opposition party. Meanwhile, in China, the number of women who said they regret getting married has more than doubled since 2012, according to a new government survey. UN-China deal on a razor's edge. When the European Union and China signed a preliminary investment agreement in December, after years of negotiation and against a last-minute loving effort by Washington, it seemed like a diplomatic coup for Beijing. But the evil is in the details, especially when those details have to be ratified by the European Parliament. This was always going to be the hardest hurdle for the trade deal to clear, with many leading lawmakers stridently critical of China's human rights records and supposed safeguard against forced labor built into the agreement. After the EU joined the United States and the United Kingdom in sanctioning Chinese officials over abuses in Xinjiang, Beijing fired back, doing the same for 10 European politicians, sparking immediate calls for the trade deal to be scrapped. The Chinese regime is committing a crime against humanity. EU sanctions are targeting criminals and entities responsible for the systemic atrocity against the Uyghurs. In response, Chinese countermeasures are the direct attack on our democratic institutions. MEP Raphael Gluckman says in the statement last month. On Tuesday, the deal seemed to be teetering. AFP, the French news agency, quoted the Valdis Dombrovskis, executive vice president of the European Commission, saying the environment is not conducive to the ratification of the agreement. In a statement, a spokeswoman for a commission appears to work this back, but admitted that the ratification process cannot be separated from the evolving dynamics of the wider EU-China relationship. Photo update. Getting back into shape. Acrobats perform a May Day holiday show on May 3rd, 2021 at a shopping center on the outskirts of Beijing, China. The country's economy is showing signs of growth again now the coronavirus is largely under control.